This is C.U.R.E. Radio, your broadcasting conduit to the latest medical information, facts, and reports from the cutting edge. Your hosts are ANITA FINLEY and Cornelius Myers.
Here we are back to give you the latest cutting edge information. So, Neil, you've been really going through all this extraordinary information that you've been finding, I've been finding, and it's amazing, isn't it? What's out there?
There's so much out there, Anita, that needs to be known, but with all the static in the background and politics and the economy and the rest of that, really vital things that are important to your health and your lifestyle go by the wayside. But I'm so pleased that we're focusing on delivering this information on our program.
Yes, and it seems like this week there might be a lot to do with eating. That's something we both like to do, isn't it?
Oh yes, never been in doubt. You know, I've been called a lot of things, but high slim was never one of them.
Well, I have to say that this whole trend in eating breakfast, I've always been taught, I guess my mother taught me that, about eat breakfast. You know, don't go without breakfast, and then the rest of the day is up to you. Do you eat good breakfast?
Well, I don't actually. I'm a very light breakfast eater. I make sure that I have high protein, high grain toast and a cup of coffee, but that sort of gets me up and away. I don't sit down and consume omelets and things of that sort. Although, for all of our lives, we've all heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And now they sort of updated it. There's a hot new trend in breakfast, Anita.
Yeah? What is it?
Hot cereal. Trendier than ever. And I'm not just talking about the old oatmeal that we're so accustomed to. Grains like bulgur, kamut, rye, and barley are appearing on more and more breakfast tables these days. Even five-star restaurants are creating flavorful twists on the old traditional bowl of oatmeal. Now, according to a survey of 500 registered dietitians published in Dietitian magazine, nearly half said that oatmeal was their favorite breakfast. Those surveyed that their morning oatmeal helps to keep them focused and feeling full all morning. Now, if you're trying to lead a healthier lifestyle, consider adding a warm bowl of cereal breakfast to your list. A well-balanced bowl should contain at least some of these following things per serving. Whole grains, very important nutrients including magnesium, selenium, copper, manganese, vitamin E, as well as compounds called phenolic acids. Studies indicate that phenolic acids may guard against heart disease and certain cancers. Not all hot cereals have whole grain. Oatmeal, instant, steel cut, or any other kind, cream of rye and wheatina are whole grain, but cream of wheat and cream of rice are not. It should have no more than 200 calories. You don't want to slow your day down. No more than 1 gram of saturated fat. 8 grams or 2 tablespoons or less of sugar. 3 or more grams of fiber, 4 or more grams of protein, and no more than 100 milligrams of sodium. Now, just to throw out some names, if you're shopping and you want to add this to your breakfast list, Quaker steel-cut oats, also on the recommended list. Arrowhead Mills Organic Bulgur Wheat, Kashi Pilaf Original, Quaker Instant Oatmeal, and Bob's Red Mill Organic Whole Grain Kamut. They all satisfy what we're listing as very important ways to start your day.
See, and my mother knew all this, even though she didn't have more than a high school education, because she was so insistent that I was 12 years old, I remember, she always had that bowl of oatmeal. And you know, this is embarrassing to tell you, but when I didn't want to eat it, she'd give me 25 cents if I would. And I took it, and I ate it, and now I love oatmeal, actually.
Yes, it's a very important start to the day, and obviously nutrition one, and it's a very accessible one. We're not talking about exotic preparation or big prescription medicines. This is something you can pick up off the grocery shelf, introduce into your diet, and see a difference immediately.
Okay, so we've done the hot trend in hot cereals for our breakfast. Now, what are we going to talk? Oh, you must have some good facts that we can follow up with.
Oh, some factoids, absolutely. Let's look at the brain today, as long as we're going to be doing facts. You know, there are the human brain is the most complex and least understood part of the human anatomy. There may be a lot that we don't know, but here are a few interesting facts that we've been able to uncover for your program. Nerve impulses to and from the brain travel as fast as 170 miles per hour. Ever wonder how you can react so quickly to things around you, Anita, or why that stubbed toe hurts right away? Well, it's all due to the super speedy movement of nerve impulses from your brain to the rest of your body and vice versa. That brings reactions at the speed of a high-powered luxury sports car. The brain is truly amazing. And just another quick factoid for you. The brain operates on the same amount of power as a 10-watt light bulb. That cartoon image that we always see of a light bulb over your head when a great thought occurs isn't really too far off the mark. Your brain generates as much energy as a small light bulb, even when you're sleeping.
Well, I was just going to say, so Neil, that means that you really do have to get some sleep because that brain's working pretty hard.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. Just a little later on in the show, we've got a very important consideration about lack of sleep and how it affects you. Something jumped off the headlines today. We had originally decided to talk a little bit about the Zika virus that's spreading throughout the Caribbean and South America. And today, lo and behold, it came home to roost. First of all, let me do some background for you. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention is warning pregnant women and others to be aware when traveling to countries where this new mosquito-borne illness, possibly linked to babies born with small, undeveloped brains in Brazil, has appeared. It's a travel alert that comes on the same day that Haitian health officials confirmed that the Zika virus is present in their country. And now, to take it one step closer to home, Anita, in the Miami Herald this morning, there was an announcement that 2 cases of the Zika virus have been found in Miami-Dade.
That's really dangerous. That is really taking us very close to home. And I know that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the organizations that are right there trying to help the world with some of these studies, but I never heard of that before, the Zika virus. Have you heard of it before?
Well, no, I haven't. I do know that the mosquito that transmits it is the same mosquito that transmits dengue fever. And I've had dengue fever, in fact, and it's something you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. But this is not as severe as dengue or hemorrhagic dengue, which can be fatal. This is fever, great discomfort, all the various very severe flu symptoms that you might have to give you discomfort. But the important thrust of it is it seems to be, and they're still speculating about this, linked to babies born with small, undeveloped brains. So they're finding that should be true in Brazil.
Well, of course, we're such a global world nowadays. We never know what's coming, who's coming through those airports, and everyone says, wash your hands. We did this the last week, I think. We talked about wash your hands. Got to be very careful. Okay, well, that's pretty serious. So now I know you have some very fun. Wait, before you go to a factoid, I wanted to go back to the cereal for a minute because one thing that I think we didn't talk about with the cereal is putting honey on your cereal. Very, very important. Honey, did you know that honey is one of the most effective foods for so many things?
Tell me.
Yeah. Well, honey, you'd be surprised. Did you know that if you make a paste of honey and cinnamon powder, you apply it on bread instead of jelly and jam, you eat it regularly for breakfast, it reduces the cholesterol in the arteries and saves a patient from heart attack.
Wow.
You want another one?
Yeah.
Okay, bladder infections. You take 2 tablespoons of cinnamon powder and 1 teaspoon of honey in a glass of lukewarm water and drink it. Wow, it destroys the germs in the bladder.
Don't you love it?
And I'm not going to, I have more. I just want to do one more. It's just, let's talk now about the flu, because it says a scientist in Spain has proved that honey contains a natural ingredient which kills the influenza germs and saves the patient from flu.
That's just terrific.
So we'll do some more next time, but I love honey. I don't know if you eat honey, but honey and cinnamon on your cereals, very, very tasty.
It's not only tasty, but, so accessible, so easy to do, and I love things like that. They come, somehow it's almost like folklore that we decided not to pay any attention to, and it's always been there, and it's so very important.
So respect the bees.
Yes, most certainly. As long as we're on B's, let's go B for brain. The human brain cell can hold 5 times as much information as, ready, the Encyclopedia Britannica, or any other encyclopedia for that matter. Scientists have yet to settle on a definitive amount, but the storage capacity of the brain in electronic terms is thought to be between 3 or even 1,000 terabytes. Now, to put that into perspective, a National Archive of Britain contains over 900 years of history, and it only takes up 70 terabytes. That makes your brain's memory power pretty darned impressive.
Well, the one thing we notice is that children never get to play with the brain. You know, they play with these dolls, or they play with tanks now and guns, but I've never seen a child play with a brain. We ought to have a brain, and they pull out little pieces of it, and they identify it. Maybe that's something we could invent.
That was a great idea, wonderful idea. If we could do Mr. Potato Head.
Right, Mr. Brain.
A brain doll. Oh, by the way, you should know your brain uses 20% of the oxygen that enters your bloodstream. It only makes up about 2% of our body mass, and yet it consumes more oxygen than any other organ in the body. That does make it extremely susceptible to damage related to oxygen deprivation. And the message is, breathe deeply. Keep your brain happy and swimming in oxygenated cells.
Oh, okay. So that's very important. Well, we did a big thing on the brain here, and I'm happy because little is known about the brain. Even when you talk about this, it's a newcomer in our world of organs.
Yes, we're finding out more about it. It's often said that we know more about the floor of the ocean than we do about our own brains, which is kind of ironic. Earlier, Anita, you said that we're going to look at some food facts today, and I wanted to continue on that theme. As a matter of fact, it's a real attention getter. There are foods that you consume that actually age you faster.
Pray tell, I don't want to eat any of them. What are they?
Can you eat how you determine, what you're eating determine how you will succumb to wrinkles? Certain foods do more that widen your waistline. They actually accelerate aging in your body. Now, if you eat highly inflammatory foods on a regular basis, they can do real damage to your body's regulatory functions, and that leads to disease, cellular degeneration, and, yes, wrinkles. Now, here are 4 of the villains that speed up aging on a cellular level. Partially hydrogenated oils. They're found in highly processed foods. They spread inflammation through your body. That creates free radicals. Free radicals eventually begin to damage your DNA. That causes effective cells to malfunction in a state of disease, or worse yet, die. And it's estimated that trans fat appears in only 2% of nutrition labels. It's an inflammatory fat. It's potentially used as much as in 37% of all processed foods. And since trans fat does not have to be labeled, if a serving contains less than half a gram, we're not aware of it. It's the safest bet to drop and start eating nutrition-dense whole foods that don't come in a package. Another villain that ages you faster, I know this is no surprise, Anita, excess sugar.
Yes, people say that there's so much sugar in food anyway, and then when you add sugar, it's really horrendous. And, of course, something else, and I just was thinking about this, someone said that when you eat foods that are lean or that they have, it's not for instance, yogurt. If you eat the actual yogurt, it doesn't have a lot of sugar. But if you get yogurt that has been, it's 1%, 0%, that they had to add a lot of sugar to it to take away the fat. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And so they add a lot of sugar to make things less fattening. I don't know how that works, but that's what I've been told and I've read somewhere, so we have to look that up somehow.
Yeah, we'll do some more research on that. I do know that excess sugar is very problematical because we all have an instinctual draw toward sugary foods. It seems to be ingrained within us. And there's probably some biological reasons why we've evolved that way, because they're rich in easily accessible energy, and that would be great if we were still running around chasing dinosaurs. but we're not. We're not hunter-gatherers, and we don't need that much sugar for energy. In fact, most of us are highly sedentary, and we eat way too much sugar. So when we get to the regular sweet fix, that sugar just cruises around our body. It does damage in the bloodstream. It leads to a loss of collagen in the skin, and that encourages wrinkles.
Okay, that's very good. I'm curious, do you put sugar in your coffee?
No, I don't. I've always drunk it black. I love coffee, so I don't need to sweeten it up, no.
That's interesting, and it's hard for me to have coffee without a sweetener. I don't use sugar, but it's one of those sweeteners I shouldn't probably be using. So I need to learn how to drink coffee without anything.
Well, a little honey doesn't hurt.
No, that's right, a little honey. That's good. Always a little honey is always a pleasant additive. Okay, well, we've certainly covered a lot of that. Now I think something that's extremely important is the deep sleep may set the stage for Alzheimer's.
Really, Anita? Tell me more about that.
Well, it's quite a story now because I know you and I work late into the night, but there's a growing evidence that a lack of sleep can leave the brain vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease. So do you think we ought to change our sleep habits? Is that good?
I think sleeping deeply is so important. There's a variety of things that go on in the sleep. And, for example, the brain is much more active at night than during the day. And you think that all the moving around and the complicated calculations and the tasks and general interaction that we do on a daily basis during our working hours would take a lot more brain power than, say, lying in bed. But it's really the opposite is true. When you turn your brain on, scientists don't know why this is, but you can thank the hard work of your brain while you sleep for all those pleasant dreams you're having, and also fighting off the toxins in your body that cause Alzheimer's.
So it's really, it's how a lack of sleep could be speeding the development of those Alzheimer's plaques. And there's a remarkable cleansing process that takes place in the brain during sleep, at least in animals. So it's a fluid. And this fluid begins to recirculate, as I guess you were saying this, back into and through the brain, through the outside of blood vessels. So this whole system is called glymphatic system, which allows the brain to clear out toxins, including the toxins that form Alzheimer's plaques. Now, this is pretty new stuff. Had you ever heard about this before?
I've heard about sleep-related being a suspect for Alzheimer's disease, but no direct information. And certainly nothing about what you're talking about, which is the glymphatic system and these wonderful clear fluids, the spinal fluids that clean and clear out the whole vascular system while we sleep, are very important to keeping the toxic plaques away that cause Alzheimer's. So there's a lot yet to be done, but we're learning more every day.
And I got a lot of this information from the brain scientist at Oregon Health and Science University. He's been studying toxin removal in the brains of mice. So these little mice are really helping because they tried this with mice and they were able to see what happens. And it's, thank goodness for mice, even though they're cute and we don't want them to be hurt. But it's important because it said that the solution may involve one of the world's most powerful magnetic resonance imaging machines, which sits in the basement there at their university. And the MRI unit is so sensitive, it should be able to detect changes that indicate precisely when the glymphatic system gets switched on in a person's brain. So when humans enter deep sleep and toxin removal begins, there should be a particular change in the signal coming from certain salt molecules. That would indicate that fluid has begun moving freely through the brain. So anyway, this is very important when you think about toxin removal system in our brains. We never think about that, especially in the older people who really don't get enough sleep.
That's so true, Anita. That's fascinating information that you're giving. And considering that the average person sleeps about 6 hours a night, and if you talk to people who are specialists in the field of sleep, they'll say that's about 2 to 3 hours too little to really be able to recuperate.
Yeah, well, you and I, of course, when we're very busy, it's the first thing we do. All of a sudden, the time goes. And that's one thing about my husband. He's very religious about going to bed at 10 o'clock whenever possible. And he does get a lot of sleep, and he takes naps, which I don't take. So maybe there's really something to that. You and I are going to have to think about this, Neil, so when we can become 92 and older.
Oh, if I could be like Bill, it would fulfill a life fantasy. He's a force, an undiminished force. Do you dream a lot, Anita?
What?
Do you dream a lot?
I don't remember any dreams. He does. Do you?
I do.
Oh.
I mean, as a matter of fact, I was interested to find out that the higher your IQ, the more you dream.
Well, that says it for you, not for me, because I don't dream, and Bill dreams, so the two of you have got it right up there.
But it doesn't really matter or mean that you're mentally lacking if you can't recall your dream. Most of us don't remember many of our dreams, and the average length of most dreams is only 2 to 3 seconds. So that's barely long enough to register. But what I started to do at university was keep a pad and pencil next to the bed, and if I woke up from a dream, I'd write down what the dream was quickly before I went back to sleep. It made for some very bizarre-looking stories.
Well, the only thing that I have done is when I go have a problem at night, before I go to bed, I think about the problem and try to find a solution. And many times I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I was supposed to know, where I lost something, what I didn't do. And I have found that amazing.
It is amazing that you keep track of this. By the way, more information about the brain. As you know, neurons are really important to our brain function, and they do continue to grow throughout the human life. For years, scientists and doctors thought that brain and neural tissue couldn't grow or regenerate. It doesn't act in exactly the same manner as tissues in many other parts of the body, but neurons can and do grow throughout your life. And that adds a whole new dimension to the study of brain and illnesses that affected it. If you imagine if we could regenerate all of the neurons that are necessary to eliminate Alzheimer's alone, it would really be a marvelous medical breakthrough.
Well, sometime we may talk about plasticity of the brain, because they're now finding where they thought that cells died and it couldn't be and you couldn't have new cells. What they're doing is they're actually moving to other areas of the brain and creating new neurons. So it's something we can talk about at another time. Well, before we run out of time, what about the benefits of intermittent fasting? Do we have time to do anything on that?
Yes, okay, let's talk about that. It's really important. It's a whole new buzzword lately.
Go ahead. Tell me what you know about it.
Okay. Well, what I've read is intermittent fasting, not a diet, but rather is an eating pattern that makes a conscious decision to stop eating at a certain time and start eating again at a certain time. It basically goes against what nutrition information has been telling us for the past few decades, that it's important to start off the day with a healthy breakfast, as we've made note of right at the top of the show, or that you have to eat 6 small meals throughout the day. While there are certain benefits for each of these, new research has pointed to multiple benefits of intermittent fasting. Although make no mistake, the benefits of eating smaller, more regular meals are important for those who tend to skip meals and up with slightly low blood sugar and overeat at their subsequent meals and throughout the day, taking in more calories than necessary, and that leads to weight gain. Believe it or not, for these people, intermittent fasting would be very beneficial as it helps with appetite regulation in the long run. In terms of weight loss, during the fasted state, your body doesn't have a recently consumed meal to use as energy, so therefore it's more likely to pull from fat that is stored rather than glucose in your bloodstream from the recently consumed meal or snack. In contrast, when you're eating regularly, your insulin levels rise and fall according to the meals that you consume. And when your storage form of glucose is full, it doesn't take much out of the way for an excess of glucose to be ushered into the fat stores. Big benefits to fasting, Anita.
Yeah, and there are people, who do a lot of intermittent fasting. They may do an overnight fast and then a few-hour fast in the morning or an early evening. So it could be 14-hour fast for women. It could be 16-hour fast for men overnight. But I have found that once I'm on a very rigorous food plan and I'm really watching what I do, I don't really have to sneak in any extra food either. And it's a little bit of, that's what they say. You have a little bit of breakfast, you have a little snack around 11, you have a little lunch, and it just keeps your body moving. So it's the best way to go. Of course, with very busy schedules, sometimes it's hard to remember that you haven't eaten.
Very true. We got time for a couple of factoids?
Yeah, let's do that.
Great. We'll finish up with the brain. It's been a good idea to do it. The brain itself cannot feel pain. While the brain might be the pain center when you cut your finger or you burn yourself, the brain itself does not have pain receptors and can't feel pain. It doesn't mean your head can't hurt. The brain is surrounded by loads of tissue, nerves, and blood vessels that are plenty receptive to pain and can give you a pounding headache. Also, 80% of the brain is water. It isn't the firm gray mass that you see on television. Living brain tissue is squishy, pink, jelly-like organ, and that's thanks to the loads of blood and high water content of the tissue. So the next time you're feeling dehydrated, get a drink. Keep your brain hydrated.
I want to go back to honey for a minute because we always love longevity. So let's talk about longevity with honey. Tea made with honey and cinnamon powder, when taken regularly, arrests the ravages of old age. So you take 4 spoons of honey, 1 spoon of cinnamon powder, and 3 cups of water and boil to make like tea. Drink 1/4 cup 3 to 4 times a day. It keeps the skin fresh and soft and arrests old age. Lifespans also increases, and even a 100-year-old starts performing the chores of a 20-year-old. How do you like that one?
I love it, honey.
How do you love it, honey, right? Well, this has been absolutely great, and we will be back next week for more. Thank you so much, Neil.
Stay healthy.